Show from Southern California. This is The Ryan Ries Show. Post your questions using @Ryan Ries on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. Are you ready?
All right. I am pumped. I'm down here in Florida, in St. Pete, Florida, actually. We're still here at Zeal School of Ministry, Calvary Chapel, St. Pete. They've had me come out, and I'm able to teach and disciple the students here. For a week here, we're doing skate contest, doing some church events, and it's been awesome to be down here. But about 2 years ago, we started coming to Florida, and we did a bunch of skate contests, and we're here with Mike Francisco. He runs a skate ministry here in the area, and we're going to be hearing a cool story of how he even got into this and how God started doing awesome stuff. But we've been coming back every year and doing ministry here and hitting the skate parks. And we actually invaded all the public school system here a while, I think even a year before that. But when COVID hit, only thing we're open were the skate parks. And then we were doing ministry. We started connecting with different people. We connected with you. And during that time, was Restore Skate a thing at that time 2 years ago? Or were you praying about it?
Yeah, no, Restore Skate was kind of in its infancy back then.
It was just getting started.
Yeah, we were going to one park.
Yeah.
On Tuesday nights, and that was the ministry at that point in time.
Now, but when I met you, when this was just starting to go, I remember you were praying like, we're just starting to come here. We're meeting up with the kids every week. We had some pizza, and you actually you were doing an event actually at the park under the awnings. And you were doing like a skate church, like a Sunday morning.
Yeah. So the first time that we did stuff was we went down to Venice with you guys, I think. And we went to some public schools and
Venice,
180
Florida.
House, all that.
Yes.
Yeah. So then the next time you were here was during COVID, when everything was closed.
Right.
And it was the Florida tour because we were open.
Right.
And that was when we had started Skate Church probably about a month, maybe 2 months before you got here.
Okay, so when I first met you, because we obviously, as you guys know, I travel all over the place, always meet all kinds of awesome people. So we were just kicking it the first year, doing stuff. You were watching what we were doing, and we're going to get into how God called you to all this. But then when COVID hit, we came down here and we did a full skate park tour.
Yes.
During that time. And how was that experience? Because that was during the time you were getting the church going. How was that experience for you to just go hit all the skate parks and invade them when we came down and partnered?
That was awesome. That's which we'll get into, but that's kind of now what we're doing, right? So now we started off, it was one park.
Right.
COVID lockdown.
Yep.
And then we ended up, actually our closest park to our house that most people didn't want to skate at was in Safety Harbor. Yep. And their gate was open. And we went in and we were skating because we were sick of being stuck in the house. Right. And we were like, yo, we should do Restore here. We should just see if somebody comes. So it started there again. Like, all right, let's start doing Tuesday nights. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that grew and got really big really fast. Like it multiplied. Like first night we did it was like 12 kids. Mm-hmm. The following week it was like 30 kids. Before you knew it, there was 100 kids in the skate park, and it's small.
And by the way, no disrespect to the skate park, but when he says people don't want to skate it means there's a lot better parks. Yes. So this is the last resort. Yep. But the gate was open. So you took a step by faith, and you started doing it, and this thing started growing and expanding and taking off. But I want to do a rewind. Okay. Because I want to talk about everything that God's doing now and how God's blessing it. And just you tell me all these stories this morning of the future of things and resources, and God is truly doing something. But I want you to do a rewind and kind of talk about how it started, because there's people that are listening to the show and they're listening and they're going, how can God use my life? How would he use me? I don't have a big church. I don't have all these resources. You need money to get bands and locations and all this stuff. And your story is actually quite the opposite. It's literally at a skate park that's open to the public. You didn't have to try to get anyone there. You're at the skate park and they came. You didn't have the budget to go get bands and all the stuff. You didn't do that. No. It was very simply with, I think, just some like pizza or something. Yeah. When you got a cool story about that later on. But I want to go backwards to see that God has a plan for everyone. And you guys heard me say this over and over and over. God has a unique plan for everyone. And he designed you. He created you for a specific call and purpose. And you're never too old to find that call. Because you're older, not old, but you're old, you're like my age probably. And God put a unique call in your life in an older age. And you weren't even a skateboarder.
No.
And we're going to get in it. But you do skate. You actually know how to skate now. So you're actually a skateboarder, but you weren't at the beginning. And it's so crazy. God has a sense of humor that he gets a non-skateboarder that learns how to skateboard in your older age, 40 or something, 30s.
I'm 46.
In your 40s, and you actually can skate. And now God is doing like crazy stuff within the skateboard community. So anyway, let's get down to the nitty gritty. What was going on give me just like a little quick background. Like, did you grow up Christian, and how'd you even get into getting a call for skateboarding?
Okay. So,
I know that's two big questions.
Okay. So we'll start with, I did not grow up Christian.
Okay.
I grew up, didn't go to church as a kid ever. I met my wife when I was playing in bands. It was the found music in high school, found my tribe in punk rock, and I started playing music. Okay. And I played music pretty much my whole adult life. So I met my wife, and we started dating, and she took me to her church, which was actually Calvary Chapel Worship Center.
Where's that? What city?
It's up in Newport Richey, Florida.
Okay.
And the first day I went, I got saved.
Sick.
And it was awesome. The second time I went, I raised my hand to get saved again, and she informed me like, "Oh, you don't have to do that once. Guys, got to get saved once." So that was cool. So that was it. I was like entering into trying to walk with Jesus.
Yeah.
Didn't do it well. We didn't have community. Didn't have fellowship. Didn't read my Bible.
Yep.
Fell off the tracks.
That will do it.
God came back in and wrecked us. Saved our marriage. That's a whole other story, right? So we then are like, all right, we're all in for Jesus. That's it. We're going all in. So we're at this church, and I end up on the worship team, right? So now I played music. So this is where it's cool because like God, sometimes it reminds me of like Saul and David, right? Like Saul, it's obvious this guy should be the king. He's tall, whatever, right? So it's like almost like, oh, I'm on the worship team. I played music for whatever, 16, 17 years.
Right.
I should obviously be on the worship team.
You should be on the worship team. Yeah.
So I get on the worship team, which is what makes sense.
Right.
And I get on the worship team, and then through that, I end up leading worship for youth, and I meet these two guys, Sebastian and Devin. And they decide on a Saturday in the afternoon they want to come over my house. And I'm like, old, right? I'm like, what? Just show up, right? So my wife's like, you should go. Like, they want to skate. I'm like, what are we going to do skating? Now, I've always loved skating my whole life. Yeah. Being in punk rock, I was always around
punk
it.
Punk rock and skateboarding. Yeah. You were halfway there already.
Yeah. I skated one summer in 7th grade. Yeah. That's it. Okay. For like 2 months. Yeah. So I always loved skating, though. So they come over, and they're like, oh, we're going to go skate in the streets. So my wife's like, you should go. And I'm thinking, like, I look back at it now, I'm thinking, like, what was my wife even thinking, right? Like, at this point in time, I'm almost 40. You should go skate with these dudes that are 19 years old. I'm like, what?
It's true.
So I'm like, so we go. Yeah. And we all throw down, like, I had a board in my shed for some reason for like a long time. So I throw down the board. It's my son. He's little. And these two dudes. And we start skating. And my son yells something about it being like a skate gang. And in that moment, it's like I get this full download. Like, I get this vision of skaters, barging down the center of a street with like flags, and it looks like war. It looks like skateboarders going to war. Yeah. At that point in time, I know I'm supposed to do something with skateboarding. Yeah. Wow. And I don't skate.
And you don't skate.
And I don't skate.
So what was the thought actually? I mean, okay, so you got to do something, but so naturally you're like, what could you do?
Right. So at that point in time, I've always had a heart for the homeless. And all these people all of a sudden start asking me, hey, do you skate? Do you skate? And I'm thinking, like, why do people keep asking me about skating? It's so crazy. Like, at this point. Yeah. So I then get this, like, hey, we should go feed the homeless. We'll take youth group kids and go skate downtown and feed the homeless.
Skate to the homeless. Perfect.
So we try it. not many people are on board. It's like not really happening. This is like what I'm thinking we're supposed to do. So I start liking skating though. I'm like, man, this is sick. I want to do this. Yeah. So I start going to parks. Yeah. We go to a park one day and I see all these kids. I see this kid who's like 11 or 12 and he's just like strung out. And that was when I was like, wait a second. I think we're supposed to come here.
Right. Was this Safety Harbor?
No, this was at a park called the Bro Bowl. It's over in Tampa. Okay. It's like a classic old park from back in the day. Yeah. So we were there and I'm like, I think this is what we're supposed to do. Right. So the other efforts were hard. Right. Couldn't get anybody to go. Right. I'm like, I think we're supposed to go tell skaters about Jesus. We're supposed to go love this community. There's no one here. Yeah. So the next day, I immediately get like free coolers, free grills from someone from work, right? Then we get like hooked up by a soda company, Jones Soda. They give us like 20 free cases of soda.
Right. And resources are coming in.
Resources are coming in. So we're like, all right, we're going to go do a barbecue down at the skate park. That's what we're going to do. Yeah. So a couple people go with us and we barbecue down at the skate park. Yeah. It was like the first time ever, right? We have no funding. I just paid for stuff out of my pocket. Yeah. I'll never forget this. I paid $35 for like hot dogs and buns. Yeah. Right. And we already had the free soda. Right. So we cook all these hot dogs. We're handing them out. We're talking to all these kids. And some random guy walks up to me and is like, hey, I've had this in my pocket for a really long time and I'm not going to use it. And he's like, I figured I'd give it to you. And he had a $35 gift card to the grocery store.
No way.
That we literally just bought all the stuff
No way. I love it.
And that was it. So then it started. And then it was, all right, let's go to parks. Let's go to parks. Yeah. And we started going to one park after another. And then we ended up at this one park called Jackson Springs. And we were there every Tuesday. And God started to grow it through there. And that is when the first time we met you was like right in that phase where we were at that one park for a while.
So for the listeners, what exactly, when you were there and God was growing it, what were you doing? Like, what did it look like when you would go? Was it once a week? And what were you doing this once a week? Were you just hanging some of the times, just kind of developing friends, which is good? Or were you preaching every time? Like, what did it look like every week to develop that friendship and relationship? Because I'm sure you guys weren't preaching down everyone's throat every single week because people get sick of that. Right. It's more like through relationship, and then the word God comes up, and then you're able to teach and all that.
So that was kind of the wisdom and the way God led me. And that was, we're going to be in this community, right? We're not coming into town, preach a gospel message and leave. Right. We're going to be here. So at that point in time, literally,
which is cool because you guys are there to disciple. Right. We're like us, like the Husards, we go into the schools weekly and then we hit a skate park because we're only there a minute, but we try to work with local skateboard ministries because they're there. And that's what's dope. You guys are able to be there.
Yeah. So at this point in time, it's just me and I'm trying to learn how to skate. And I've got like the Tony Hawk starter kit, helmet, full pads. I look like the biggest kook. And I'm rolling around the park. And I'm bringing pizza and Jones Soda. Yeah. So now like everyone's like, who's this old guy? Who's this old kook with the, at least he's got pizza, right? Like I'm just rolling around. So
did you have wrist guards?
I did not have wrist guards, but I had elbow, knee, the whole nine, right? Okay. So at that point in time, our church does this 21-day fast. Yeah. And it was a Tuesday morning, and our pastor sends out this video, and he's like, pray for your ministry. So I start praying, and my prayer is like, God, you called me to do this. I don't know how to skate. Like, I need help. I need skateboarders to help me. I need somebody that actually rips, right? Yeah. Like, these guys don't even listen to me. I'm just like, I can't even ollie. Yeah, yeah. So at this point in time, so that's Tuesday morning. Tuesday night comes. It's skate night. I'm hyped. My son comes with me, and we go to Jackson Springs, our regular park, right? I walk in to the park. Immediately, I look to my left, and there's a guy standing on the quarter pipe in the front that's got a Christian Skaters Brazil t-shirt.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah. And I'm like, no way. Like,
right. Yeah.
I just prayed this morning. Yeah. Right? This guy shuts the park down. Like, he is ripping it. Right? His name's Tiago. Long story short, he speaks no English. We speak through Google Translator. and he helps me start the ministry like for real with
Dude,
him.
that is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Dude,
And
through Google Translator.
Yep. And in 1 year, so he went back to Brazil, came back, and he came back the next year. And we prayed, and he was actually going to, he was taking English lessons at Jairus Hodges' church at that time. And we prayed when he left for Brazil that he would learn English. And he came back less than a year later.
Yeah.
He left in May, came back in November. And he was already like,
flowing in English.
It wasn't fluent, but he could speak English. And he came back, and that was when we like locked in, and it was him and I for a really long time. And we would go, and he would just rip, and then we'd bring food, we'd pray over the food, we'd talk to the kids, we'd tell them, we'd pray for them if they needed, and it started from there. And that was like really it. And then God started adding people.
Right.
And then Sebastian.
Hold on really quick.
Yeah.
I love the way you said that is because you didn't know how to skate. You were learning. You prayed. God answered your prayer, obviously, how that works. But when you're going to reach like a community like musicians or artists or football players, it's good to have, even if you're just a speaker, it's good to like, if you know that you're not that guy, at least bring someone that can relate to the culture because it helps you. You know what I mean? To have these conversations and talk and communicate with the people. I'm not saying you need it, but it really helps bring the walls down because you have one of their own to go, okay, yeah, these guys skate. Let's hear what they have to say. But then once obviously the relationships and everything happen, then everyone's open. But it does help because I've had a lot of churches go, hey, we want to go down and we're going to go do an outreach at this place and we're going to bring worship bands and all this stuff. And I'm like, does anyone skate with your guys' church that you guys are trying to go? Because I'm like, what you guys are planning right now, it's going to be a disaster. And they didn't listen to me.
Yep.
And they went with no skaters. And I told them, I said, I can't go with what you guys are doing. Like, that's weird. It's like you're bringing a church with worship at a skate park. Like, these guys listen to punk rock and gangster rap. Like, what? And dude, they went to downtown LA where they had it's like the San Pedro kind of under the bridge style. And dude, they came in, they did the event, and dude, all the skaters left, and I think they were throwing beer at them, beer cans. So anyway, but you went in with a skater that rips. That's part of the culture, and then conversations and eating and hanging out and praying. And anyway, so people need to know that.
Yeah,
there's a way.
And then through that, God just kept opening doors. Right. At this point in time, we were like, all right, let's do contests or something and give things away, and just really kind of support this community. Just even the park we were going to, there's a lot of kids, nasty boards, didn't have money.
Yeah.
The park was their babysitter. So we start pouring into these kids, and God opens a door where we start getting boards from arguably the biggest skateboard company right now.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it was literally an email, and they're like, yeah, we love that you're working with youth. And they start sending us boxes of boards. So now it's like we're giving away legit boards, right? Like, we got this, here you go, and that was sick. And it started from there. And then Sebastian came back in, and it started to grow, and we were building this amazing community. And we were making connections at Tampa Pro and with pros and people in the industry, and all of a sudden, COVID.
Shuts everyone down.
Shuts it all down.
It shut everyone down.
Right.
Yep.
So that, from there, where we thought like, oh man, it's starting to grow. And at that point in time, we had done ministry with you that one time, public schools. So this was 2020. And then you fast forward, we ended up planting a church at that Safety Harbor skate park because they were open. So we took a month off. We were going stir crazy. Couldn't stay in the house any longer.
Yeah, totally.
So we ended up at the Safety Harbor skate park, and it was like starting over. Me and Sebastian went.
The worst. Okay, just let's reiterate this.
Yeah.
The worst skate park.
The worst. Yeah.
Like
Not
going to the best park to start this.
Right.
Going to the worst park.
Yeah, we're going back, starting at a park where no one was really going.
Yeah.
Right. So it was open. So we threw it out there on Instagram. And like I said, it was like 12 people. Next time it was like 30. Then it was like 80, 100. And now kids are just, every Tuesday night, it's just jamming. Like, there's so many people coming. And at that point in time, we were sick of watching church online. Right now we're doing Restore Tuesday nights for quite a few months.
At the skate park.
At the skate park. and it's getting absolutely crazy. Like it was literally like the city was talking about it all the time. And you would watch parents just drop cars loads of kids
just dropping them off.
There was kids that didn't skate. They just wanted to hang around and watch people skate.
Yeah, it's a scene.
There was actually something happening, right?
Yeah.
So that grew and it grew and it grew, and we had all these people getting involved. All of a sudden there's like more people are helping, and now we got like a team of guys, and we're all kind of like doing this. And in this moment is when everyone's online for church. So one Sunday, I'm just like, man, I'm over watching church on TV. So we went to the park on a Sunday morning, and I think we were reading Daniel or something. We just were reading Daniel and skating.
Yeah.
And I felt like God was like, hey, we should gather here. Like, have a church service.
Yeah, skate church.
So we had seen a lot of, skate church is a thing. Like, so many ministries say skate church, right? And I was like, no, we need to really have church, though. I don't want to do a Bible study. I want to, like, let's have church.
Like, let's have a church.
Let's have church. Like, let's have worship. Let's take communion. Like, let's have church.
Yep.
So
so awesome.
So we go under the pavilion.
Yeah. Which is like 10 yards?
Yeah.
10 yards from the...
10 yards from the park. There's a pavilion that people barbecue in. Yeah. So we start and we're like, let's just invite people that would maybe want to get together and worship. So we invite people out, and it's like, once again, it's like 12 or 15 people. And that happens, and it was awesome, right? Like, oh, that was great. Like, we're going to do this again next week.
Yep.
So then we do it, and more people come. And then more people come. And now we're inviting the skaters, and now skateboarders are coming. Right.
So the skateboarders weren't coming originally.
We just started to have, the first service was we invited a couple skaters, and we invited some people that we knew were sick of watching TV.
But then they started coming. Because when I was there, they were coming.
Right. So we started inviting the skaters. Because then it was like, oh, you guys want to learn about Jesus? Meet us on Sunday morning. We're going to.
And it's 10 yards away.
And it's 10 yards away. So that's how the skate church started.
Sick.
And right about a month and a half into it is when you guys came.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And that was amazing. You guys were just teaching through the Bible and pouring into them. We actually, when we were there, we baptized, or you got, who baptized?
Yeah, we baptized.
I don't think I went in the water.
No, it was you and Sonny.
I did? I went in the water? Oh, yeah, that's right.
He happened to be a POD.
That's right. I went in my pants.
Yes. Yeah. So.
And that was incredible. So you were saying, what happened with him? How'd that guy find God?
Okay, so we had known him for a couple of years through Restore, and he's like the local ripper. Like, it's like his park. Like, he's been there for a long time. He's always skated there. And just all these little things, like, oh, man, I wouldn't mind watching one of those Christian skate videos, which is something I've never heard. You're like like, what? Yeah. I think I would want to watch a Christian skate video. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then he starts coming to the church, and he's, we gave him a board. He was riding on an Untitled board at that point in time. And he's coming to church, and he's kind of like feeling it out with God, right? Like, I know he had a little bit of a background maybe when he was a kid. And we had a church service, and I was teaching on the story of Jairus and Jesus raising his daughter from the dead, right? So we go through that, and then we start skating. And this guy gets locked up on the pool coping and comes crashing down to flat and starts screaming bloody murder. Like, it was the worst.
This is a grown man, by the way.
Yeah, he's like 27. Yeah. He's screaming screams that like made me sick inside. Like, that's how bad he was in pain. Everyone around the park, baseball players, whoever's out, basketball courts, everyone stopped. They're all just looking into the park, like, what is happening? It sounds like he's dying, right? And my mind is just racing, like, oh no, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I'm thinking, I'm calculating ambulance bills and all this kind of stuff. So I, at that point in time, lay my hand on him and say, God, help. I think I said, God, help. Please take this pain away. Help us.
Yeah.
That was the prayer. Wasn't anything.
Yeah, spectacular.
There was nothing spectacular about it. So he then says, oh, hey, I can move my fingers, because he couldn't move his fingers. So then he looks at me and he says, can you hold my arm? I'm going to try to get up, because I can't just lay here on the concrete.
Yeah.
And I'm holding his arm, and he tries to get himself up. And as he's getting up, he just starts screaming. And he's like, whoa, whoa. And he's moving his arm around. He's like, what's going on? And he starts screaming and yelling about his arm. Like his arm's like healed. Right. And now I'm just like, I'm still kind of in shock over it.
Yeah.
So we give him like, we make a sling out of a Restore t-shirt, throw some ice on there and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, after about 10 minutes, he's like, this is crazy. And I'm like, I'm going to go get some food for us. I'm a comfort eater, right? So I'm like, let me go get some food. So I go run and get burgers, and I come back with this bag of burgers. And him and another skateboarder they're sitting up on top of the bowl. And as I walk up with the food, one of them says to the other, what else could it be? And I go, what are you guys talking about? And this one guy says, hey, you just taught that story, and Jesus healed that girl, and it said she was walking around like nothing had happened.
Nothing happened.
And he goes, he's walking around like nothing happened. And like they were both like, we just saw a miracle.
Yeah.
And I'm just blown away because God just healed this guy.
Yep.
And you know, it's like, dude, we've prayed for healing numerous times, right? At that point in time was probably the one I didn't expect to see, right? But like God heals this guy and then reveals himself through the message to these two skateboarders who in turn give their lives to the Lord, and we baptized both of them. You baptized one, we baptized the other the following week.
That is amazing. And you know what? These are just the cool stories of Jesus that he's given us through the Word of God, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You see the book of Acts as well, and you see these things happening. And they're placed there to inspire us, to let us know that God can do this through all of us. You know, I remember we've talked about healings a lot, and I started, there's a part when I was going, why does God, we're seeing all these healings, like, I'm like, where's this biblically? So, and I've read the New Testament, like, I don't know how many times, you know, a lot of times. And all of a sudden I start reading through it, looking for healings, and it's like, Jesus healed, Jesus healed, Jesus healed. And I'm like, it's right in front of our face, but you don't think about it because you think healing is so like far-fetched. Yep. But in the end of Mark, the Great Commission, Jesus says, preach the gospel, signs and wonders will follow. And then at the bottom it says that all the disciples went out and they preached everywhere. And we know that they would go from town to town, village to village. Yep. And he says that God worked with them, confirming what was said through signs and wonders.
Right. And that's exactly.
So like, it's there.
That was it.
That's there.
That scripture literally happened right there in that part.
And it's not like, you know, people over sensationalize things. Oh, signs and wonders, and you got to look for all this stuff. Bro, there was nothing there. It was literally God working supernaturally in the natural realm. You preached the gospel. You taught the word of God. This guy got hurt. You said, God, help me. Peter, when he was sinking, he said, Jesus, save me. And Jesus pulled him up out of the water. God does what he wants to do, how he wants to do it. It's not like this whole like thing where you said be healed and he fell on the ground. And it's not like that. Right. It's just walking by faith, and God just does what he wants to do. And it's so simple, and it's there in your Bible. It's right in front of you. Yep. So here they are. And why do people get healed? Because Jesus is pointing to himself. If he heals, then they say the Bible's real. That means Jesus is real, because what the heck is going on? So therefore, they have to give their life to Christ. Yep. And that is why this stuff exists. Look, we got 1 minute, okay? So we're going to continue this party in a minute. For all of you listeners, you have a website.
Yeah.
What is it?
www.restoreskate.com.
Restoreskate.com. Get there. Check them out. Look them up. They're based in Florida. Tampa, Florida. Yeah, one of the big hubs here where the skate park at Tampa is. They're here, located here. Go to Ryan Ries Official to the website. Oh, I'm sorry, to my YouTube channel, Ryan Ries Official. Click on it, subscribe, share. We got like 7 years of radio shows of rad stories like this and so much more. Go to thewhosoevers.com. Click there, book us for tours to come out. We hit the skate parks, we hit the schools, we hit the churches, wherever, whenever, however. We go like Jesus from town to town, village to village. I love you guys. We'll be back in 2 minutes right after the break. Peace.
More of The Ryan Ries Show coming up. Post your questions at Ryan Ries on his Instagram, Twitter, and or Facebook. Now, back to The Ryan Ries Show.
All right, we are back, and this show is amazing. I'm having a good time. Honestly, I'm personally getting really inspired by this faith story. You know, I was just telling you at the break, Mike Francisco from Restore Skate is who he is. You can look him up, restoreskate.com, if you want to check out the skateboard ministry. You know, I've been hearing your story from the first half, and I love living by faith and just seeing how God is assembling and putting these pieces together slowly. And when you're in this situation and you're watching it grow slow, you're kind of frustrated because everyone that does anything wants to see it explode and see it be a big thing. But what God was doing is he was slowly putting pieces together and touching people's lives that would later come alongside you to help continue to build. Because any ministry, as you probably know and heard, anything that just starts off like with a big fireworks show, you have to maintain that fireworks show. And people get bored once you don't have that fireworks show. But all the ministries that are sustainable that you see that are going for a long time, they just slowly build, like Billy Graham and even startup churches, and they slowly build and they grow, and they have that solid foundation because Jesus is the foundation, and it's not all these fireworks and bells and whistles and smoke machines and the biggest pastor, the biggest worship band or whatever to create this hype, because once that hype's gone, then what? All that church or that ministry can stand on is the foundation, what it's built on. So if there's no foundation, that thing is just going to collapse. Yeah. But what God's doing with you, you guys even got COVID. you know, COVID came and which COVID took out everyone overnight. And then those ones that had that foundation, they came back and then they slowly rebuilt again and grew. But all the ones that stood on the hype and all the fancy saying and not the word of God, those ministries and those ones that have closed down and stayed closed down and didn't reopen because they were scared, they're nowhere to be in existence now. You guys had access to a skate shop or a skate park that no one wanted to go to because there's a lot better ones, but the gate was cracked open. It had an opening to go in, and that's where you went back, and that's where this whole thing birthed. So here's this guy, not a believer. He falls, grown man, 27 years old, falls, hangs up on a quarter pipe. What quarter pipe was it, by the way? Was it the mini ramp in the back?
No, it was in the front. There's like some jagged pool coping.
It's that big one, right? It's pretty high.
Yeah.
And one part of it's like over vert, or is it just like it goes into a vert wall?
No. This one's it's in the front. That's inside the bowl thing.
Oh, I know which one. It's next to the parking lot.
Yes.
That one.
Yeah, by the
pool
fence.
coping is like clumpy, janky, crappy concrete. And he hung up on that and died basically. Yeah. Then this guy goes over and prays for him. He gets healed, but you don't even know. You leave to go get burgers because he's tripping out because his arm's starting to work. Then they come back and his two friends, this is what you hear at the beginning of the show, the two guys that are not Christians going, wait a minute, this is what it has to be because you just taught the story of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. So then they heard that story in the Bible teaching from you, and then his arm gets healed, and they're like, it has to be. So that led to him. These two guys ended up getting baptized. So now that's happening. God does a miracle. Or just not really, that wasn't a miracle. It was just a healing. You know, a miracle is like when you're born blind and then all of a sudden you can see. But it's a simple healing to God, crazy to us.
Right.
And now Jesus is known in the park, and this guy's a ripper at the park. Yep. So he's testifying about this Jesus guy that healed him, right?
Yep.
So that's the best is when that happens with a non-believer. So then what happens from here? You guys start this church. Now you're starting this church here, and we're on our way. The Whosoever's end up coming.
Yeah, so we had always had an end date. Our idea was, we're supposed to gather, and then when church opens, we're going to go back to church.
Right.
Because who am I? I'm not a pastor.
You didn't even have a plan to do it.
No, none whatsoever.
You're like, we're going to just do this temporary.
So once the healing happens, you got to go home and digest all that, right? Absolutely. Like, okay, God is in this, obviously.
Right.
And then I could just feel it in my soul, like, all right, we're supposed to stay here. And then people just start coming. Like it's like, all right, now we're and like
the park and the church meeting.
Right. So the church on Sunday mornings is getting up around 35, 40 people. I don't even know anything about church planting, right? Like, apparently other churches don't have that many people and they have a building, right? So we don't know. We're just like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to do church. Yeah. I'm not a pastor. I'm not even a full-time ministry yet. I have a job. So now I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? So even in another crazy story, God leads me to teach expository through the Bible, right? So that's what we're going to do.
This is a guy that didn't want to be a pastor, by the way.
Right. Yeah. Well, we could talk about that too. So a lot of times I feel like Gideon.
Yeah.
And this time I felt a lot like Jonah, right? Like, I'm like, why? Why are you sending me here? Yeah. So we start doing the church, and that was when you guys came to town, right? Like, we were supposed to go back to our home church in November. You guys came like last weekend of October. And then we did a full week skate park tour, and you guys came and spoke at Skate Church. And when you guys came, it was like 150 people came because social media was blowing up about it, right?
Oh yeah, because we were coming down. That's right.
And the cool thing about it was, God does stuff, and then we start to doubt. We start to we listen to the lies, right?
Oh yeah.
So our guy separates his shoulder, arms hanging out, healed. He's skating 2 nights later. He's back Tuesday night.
Yeah.
We went and did that skate park tour, and some guy separated his shoulder while we were doing it. Sonny popped his shoulder back in. And that dude didn't get off the ground. No. He was laying in pain. And I remember looking at that guy and thinking like, whoa, like this guy can't even get up.
Yeah. Versus
meanwhile, Tyrell's running around the park like 2 hours later.
Yeah.
And so like when you guys came to town and then you guys left, a lot of people saw what was happening at the park and then kept coming.
Dude, that is encouraging. As you were telling me this, and that was the first time we didn't know, because the way God uses us is, we partner with churches and ministries, and we just go and do these outreaches. But we're working with the locals in the area, so when we leave, they can be there. So we didn't even know that. That's awesome. That's encouraging, because you don't see everything all the time.
Right.
So so now your church is going, and people are coming. And then so how long was this going? Has there been any changes recently?
So we were in the park for 2 years.
Okay.
Every Sunday.
Right.
And
this is kind of during COVID still, like COVID vibes, or were you guys already back open? Because you're in Florida.
Yeah, no, we were open. Okay. We were back open, but the thing was people were coming, and we were getting this. So what started as, we're going to do this with skaters, all of a sudden, this family left a church and they're here. Right. This family left another church.
Yeah.
We've got ex-pastors that are dealing with some church hurt that they're here. And this person, people that don't want to be indoors. And like all of a sudden we have this incredible like motley crew of all of us doing church together. And meanwhile, the whole time I'm just like, Lord, do you how long are we doing this? Like, how long are we going to do this, God? Right? Like over and over. And I don't want to say I struck a deal, right? But I was like, all right, as long as God's in it, I'm in it.
That's a good deal.
That's it.
Yeah. If God's in it, I'm in it.
I would tell everyone, I told my wife, I told Sebastian when we were going through these things, like, we'll know when God's not here.
Right.
And like a lot of times we measure that by numbers, right? So Easter Sunday, right? Tons of people are there. And you're like, I'm freaking out. I'm going out of my mind, right? There's like 85 people and I'm going to preach on Easter.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
And it's like all these things are happening. The second year that we were in there, it's Palm Sunday, right? No one shows up to church. And in my mind, I think, this might be it. That's it. There's only 8 people here.
Yeah.
Last week there was 40 something. Now we only have 8 people. Yeah. Time to close the doors like every other church would do, right?
Yeah.
So there's a guy that comes in. He's a kid. He's like 20 years old. He's a local kid, and he's homeless. So he shows up to church that day, and him and I are talking, and we talk for like 40 minutes before church. He's helping me set up. We have hours of conversation because there's no one there, right? Like there's not a bunch of people there. So I'm not having all these conversations. I'm just really dialed into this one guy, and he's living on the streets, living in a park, He's gotten into some trouble, hooked on drugs, just broke his arm maybe a couple months ago. And I start talking to him about Jesus and talking to him about U-Turn, the U-Turn ministry. That's on Sunday morning. Monday night I go skating. He shows up at the park and he's like, hey, I think I want to go to that rehab. And we got him off the streets, got him up at U-Turn. He gave his life to the Lord. They baptized him. And the real story was he got up there and they looked at his arm, and his arm was severely infected.
Oh, shoot.
And he was literally, he broke it.
Oh.
And like, it was like surgically repaired, but he lives on the streets, so it was all infected. It was like really gross, man. Swollen, red, pussy. He gets up to U-Turn. They take a look at him. They rush him to the hospital, and the doctors are like, you're lucky you're alive. And another day, and we probably would have had to cut your arm off. Oh. But it was like, I looked at it, it's like, at that moment, it's like, dude, no one shows up to church. This guy shows up. If we don't have that, this guy loses his arm, maybe dies right in our community.
Yeah.
But instead, I have all these conversations with him, and the next day he's like, yo, I want to try this. I want to try this rehab. I want to be off the streets. And like, that was just another, and then all of a sudden, the next Sunday, people are back.
Oh my
gosh,
and I'm like, that's insane.
And I'm like,
dude, I love that.
And I'm like, Lord, when are we, you still using me?
Yeah.
And it was like, that's how it was like, dude, we had this dance every week.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that. I love looking at situations like that when like we show up, like when we'll be on tour and like if no one shows up or, oh, the principal said, we didn't get a chance to advertise for the event because it had, it's a Christian event or whatever it be, then that's exactly when we look at each other. Or when things are going bad, me and Daniel, when we were going to South America, we kept having all these problems on the plane and they're moving our seats around and changing this and it canceled. And we both look at each other and we go, but dude, God's going to do something crazy. Because he's changing, because we know he's a divine chess player, right? So he's changing the program. He's moving things around because he's like, I got something else. And we always know something big's going to happen. Like he's going to do something like that's going to blow our minds. So we're like, okay, cool. Things aren't going our right way. We're kind of like not happy about things are going because, people aren't showing up. They're saying that they didn't promote for the event. All right, so what's going to happen? And then, dude, no one shows up. 8 people? What? Last week? God, what the heck?
Yeah.
And he's like, just wait. And then boom, this amazing, God saved this guy's arm, gives his life to Christ, and it's this whole gnarly story.
Yeah.
Dude. So anyway, to the listeners, hey, when you think things aren't going your way, just realize that God is doing something new and something different. So look out for what he's actually going to do in this moment. Even if you show up to a small event, I want to encourage you. You might do an outreach event. It might be a small event, but just go, okay, God, what are you going to do? Because he's going to do something. He's going to do something in that room. Like we were just, for instance, we were praying in this small group yesterday with just like five people, 5 students of Zeal School of Ministry. And we were praying, and I was going to teach, and then we changed the plan because I was going to teach that night. So we said, let's just have a prayer meeting. Let's just sit down and pray and see what God wants to do, right? And we didn't have any worship or anything, but thank God Jairus knows how to sing. He had a couple songs, but it was really just a simple prayer. And guess what? One girl got baptized. She received the gift of tongues. So like you're in this small setting and you're like, okay, we're not teaching. There's no worship. We're just going to hang out and just pray.
Yep.
And then God goes, yeah, exactly. Just pray. Oh, that sounds boring. But God's like, dude, wait till you see what I'm going to do. I'm going to hook this girl up with tongues. I'm going to give it to her. So what is God going to do in these little times? Don't look at what's in front of you. Yep. Look at what is God going to do in the supernatural realm, but how it affects the natural realm. Yeah. So that's what basically happened with you. Yeah. It didn't look too hot, but God did some crazy stuff.
Yeah. And that was, so I would say it was always all right, we're going to do this another week. Mm-hmm. Like we had no like plan of what the end would look like.
Yeah.
It's always just like, all right, well, we're just going to keep going.
Week to week.
Week to week, week to week, week to week. And I felt like I was tested a lot of times because, like, I'm working all week, doing all these things. And we're going through the Bible, and, like, I would feel God, like, giving me the message on a Friday, on a Thursday, right? I'd be so hyped. Then all of a sudden, there's a couple weeks where it's Saturday morning, and I don't really feel like I have anything to say.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, Lord, and all I'm doing is praying and praying and praying, like, Lord, please, like, what do you want to say? What do you want to say?
Yeah.
Because I never wanted it to be us. Yeah. That was the one rule, was like, if it's not God, then we're not doing it. Yeah. End of story. And that would be it. Like, Saturday night message. I mean, it was crazy. Yeah. We had all gotten COVID at one point in time. We had teaching through that, dealing with all those things, but, like, all the times God would provide. God was bringing people to himself. We saw people get saved, people get baptized. Yeah. And
that's the Great Commission.
Yeah. And that was it. And we never planned on starting a church. We're a skateboarding ministry.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of times there's a church that has a skateboarding ministry. Yeah. We were like a skateboarding ministry that had a church.
Yeah.
That's really the way we looked at it. And as of right now, we're on, like, a small hiatus because I was praying about it, and, I know that God's given us some new territory. And I'll just leave it at that right now. But we got some new places where we think we're going to plant.
So new territory, new ideas, new plans. That means new season.
Yep.
God's writing his book, right, of your life. So you're going into now. One chapter is ending, and now you're moving into another chapter. It's very simple. That's what God does. When I look back at the last 14 years of myself with the Whosoever's movement, we started off doing big old, huge, massive music festivals. And then we transitioned to going to doing our own stuff. And then we went to schools, and it's like, it's always changing. Then COVID hit, we started going to skate parks, But it's different chapters that God does, and each chapter prepares you. The way God works is each chapter prepares you for the next chapter.
Yep.
And the chapters get bigger and gnarlier, as in gnarly, as in a good thing.
Yeah.
And the battles come stronger because Satan, he's always there to disrupt and destroy, but greater is he that's in us than he that's in the world. So we have 8 minutes left. So what would you like to say? Okay, so just to be clear, you got new stuff on the horizon. So make sure you guys go to restoreskate.com. Stay tuned. You guys are on social media too, right?
Instagram, Restore Skate.
Same thing.
Yep.
You can find them. If you follow me, you can find them. I follow them as well if you can't find them just by typing in Restore Skate, but you should be able to find them. And it says St. Pete, Florida in your guys' location.
Yeah, it's Tampa.
Tampa.
The whole Bay Area.
So that's them if you look for them online.
Yeah.
All right. What do you want to say to the listeners? Someone, and this doesn't even have to apply to skateboarding because we're Christians. So Jesus has given us the church, everyone that believes in him. We're all disciples. We're all followers. No one's greater than anyone. Romans says that. God shows no favorites. He wants us to read, pray, and obey his word. And when you read, pray, and obey his word, it comes down to the Great Commission. And Jesus said to the disciples, go preach the gospel. That's the good news about Jesus, who he is and what he did on the cross and died and raised from the dead. And then baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and then teach them to obey my commandments. That's where you go to church. And then that should lead to wanting to go back out. That's just kind of how the Great Commission works, and that's what you're doing. So anyone that maybe you're a musician, maybe you're an attorney, maybe you're a doctor, maybe you're a teacher, maybe you're a pastor, maybe you're 8 years old, who knows, to whosoever. And what would you say to them if they want to go out and start something for God? How would they start to get the call, basically? How does that start? What does that even look like?
For me, it was like I had said, it was like almost like a download, right? Like I just saw this thing and I was like, God's always speaking to us. We just got to be able to listen.
Okay. So listening, how do you, because I want to give this real practical for the skate kid or whoever. How do you hear from God, and what do you do to put yourself in a place to hear from God?
Spending time with the Lord, for sure. spending quiet time.
Is that reading
in the morning,
and praying?
Reading and praying.
Okay.
Sometimes it's worshiping. Sometimes it's just praying. Sometimes it's reading.
Okay.
You know,
Perfect.
like I try not to make everything the same day, everything the same routine every day. And
switch it up.
because any relationship's not going to be
The same.
thrive if you do the same exact thing every day. And then just like, I just recently found out.
When you pray, when you pray, have you been praying for specific things? Should people pray for specific things?
Yes and no, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes prayer is just worship.
Yeah.
Sometimes prayer is just trying to draw closer to the Lord, right? It says, you draw closer to the Lord, he draws closer to you in James. And I believe God doesn't speak in thunderbolts. He can, but a lot of times it's a whisper and you got to get close enough to hear. And I just found this out recently. There's no Hebrew word for coincidence, right? There's no Hebrew word. And you got to look at the things that are going on around you that aren't coincidences. Like God's showing you, like I had this vision of skateboarding, then people are starting to ask me about skateboarding and all of these things. And all of a sudden you just say, yes, God, is this you? I'm going to take a step. And if you walk through a door, you think God's opening, you'll know fast when it's God. Because there'll be things happening that you're not able to do.
Yeah.
And that's when you know, this is the Lord and not my own strength, right?
I would agree.
And that's kind of what the story of Restore is. It's like one thing after another, you know, like we have all these connections with people in the industry and pros and pastors and all these people that I had no business being connected to.
And now,
now we're connected. And he constantly does it. And he doesn't he could have gave me a ministry in mathematics or something, right? But he didn't.
Yeah.
It was something I loved, but I never did.
Yeah.
And it was skateboarding. And like he throws me right into the culture.
Yeah.
And now we're going to maybe 4 or 5 different parks a month, every other week. People are coming. There's tons of people going. We get all these resources pouring in that they're not because of us. And it's like, if God is leading you into something, you'll know. You can feel that. Like, I think God's leading me into this. And when you say yes and when you take the step forward, he's going to show up. He's not going to just send you out there and leave you.
And if doors are closing and it's like hard to get anything done constantly, that means God is closing the doors. So don't force them. They're locked for a reason.
Yeah.
And if you're truly following God, like you're saying, reading, hearing God's voice and what he's talking about, when you try to open doors, if one door doesn't open, that means there's another door that's going to open. And you keep knocking. But if everything's just not happening, then God's just like shutting it down, like regroup, go back, and just wait on God, you know, because it can be frustrating. But when God opens the doors, you know, it's just on, and you'll know. Because, like you said, things just flow so smooth.
Yeah, and I would say that if
we have 2 minutes left.
If you go through the Bible's full of stories of unlikely people doing incredible things because God is doing them through them, right? And it's like, it can be anyone. It's God that's doing it all. And like, I'm an unlikely person to be having a skateboarding ministry in Tampa, Florida, one of the hubs of skateboarding in the world.
Yeah.
But he did it. And it was just because we were willing to say yes, not because we're special, but just because God is a good God. And he wants to reach his people. And he just wants people to surrender and go. Because that's what he sent us to do, to go.
It's that simple. So if you're watching this right now and you want to give your life to Christ, I would just say you just believe that Jesus died on the cross and raised from the dead. Ask him into your heart. Say, God, forgive me of my sins. Come into my heart. Prove that you're real to me and fill me with your Holy Spirit. And then just say amen. But when you say that prayer, mean it. And you might say it after the show because we're going to end right now. But say it, believe it, receive it. There's a Bible app you could download on the smartphone. The Holy Bible, download it. Click on a translation that you like to read. Start in the New Testament. Just kind of read through it and learn about Jesus. And we even actually have apps on the Bible app. We have devotions. Sonny has a devotion on the Bible app. I have some. Just type in the Whosoever's or my name, and you can read those. And those are like little devotions that can get you a taste for the Bible. And then you're already in the Bible app. So read the Bible from there. Look them up. If you're in Florida, get connected with them. Go to the YouTube channel. click on Ryan Ries Official, and that's all the past radio shows. So you can click there, and if you want to hear it even at a musician's mouth, we did some of those interviews. We do questions and answers on the show, all kinds of stuff. It's all stuff leading to point to Jesus. It's all about Jesus. It's not about any of us. God has changed our lives. It's real, and he'll do it to you if you just put yourself in that situation and allow him to do it. He'll change you from the inside out, but he'll use you what you like to do. Like he uses you in those arenas. So don't forget to go to whosoevers.com, book us for a tour. We're traveling all over the globe. We will do a skate contest. We'll come to your school. We'll come to your church. We'll come anywhere to encourage you where you're at. I love you. Thank you for tuning in. And man, hey, my brother, thank you. We've been trying to do this for a couple years, so it went down finally. Peace.
This has been The Ryan Ries Show. To connect and find out more about Ryan, click on ryan-reese.com. Check us out next Saturday at 9 p.m. for The Ryan Ries Show.